The release of HBO's The Last of Us Season 2 is right around the corner, and as an excited fan of both the show and original source material, I want to predict how the intricate story will be structured using moments from the video game. HBO's The Last of Us is based on the video game of the same name about the story of Joel and Ellie, a pair connected through the harshness of the world they live in as they must fight to survive in a post-outbreak America and embark on a journey across the country with a possible cure for humanity. The game was beloved by players and had the perfect story for translating on the television. After the first season's success, it was clear that Season 2 would have to take on an even bigger challenge of adapting the complex structure of the second game. This video contains spoilers for the entire The Last of Us franchise. Now that you've been warned, let's get right into it. Sorry, I didn't mean to start there. Let's take this one hit at a time. Based on what we've seen in the trailers and the SXSW interview with the cast and show creators, my theory on how HBO's The Last of Us Season 2 will be structured is that it will focus primarily on Ellie's 3 days and will not reach Abby's side of the story until Season 3. Having in view that there will only be 7 episodes this season, each one likely reaching the hour mark, I can't see a way for all of Abby's side of the story to play out during Season 2. However, when considering the new medium and the wait between seasons, the structure of the story will have to take liberties and make changes to address characters and events in a more appropriate order. There's a good chance that we'll get Abby's first flashback early on, likely as the introduction of the season, and then reveal her urge for revenge at the end of the first episode. I also believe there will be the introduction of the Seraphites closer to the later episodes before Ellie comes across them. This provides the opportunity to introduce the viewer to Isaac and address the war happening between his crew and the Seraphites to set up the points that take place during Abby's half of the story in Season 3. The game has a tough structure to adapt, and that's why I'm making this video to predict what order of events was decided for the show. For episode 1, I'm going to describe most of what I think will happen considering it will be the longest episode. My prediction is that the season will open with Abby's flashback, which takes place around the same time as Ellie being prepped for surgery. This is during the events of Season 1's finale, where Joel is incapable of letting Ellie go and is about to put a bunch of Fireflies to rest, including the doctor conducting the procedure on Ellie, who is Abby's father. This establishes Abby's character in a way that works best for a show compared to having the scene revealed several hours into the game. The circumstance was even hinted at during Season 1's final episode with a zoom in on Jerry, Abby's dad, which increases the likelihood of Abby's introduction at the beginning of Season 2. After learning about Abby, it transitions to Jackson, with Joel talking to Tommy about what happened at the hospital. Shortly after, Joel meets up with Ellie to play her a song on the guitar as he promised her, and before he leaves, he tells Ellie he'll give her guitar lessons in the morning. Once the scene is over, instead of cutting to Ellie 5 years later, we experience episode 1 playing out the flashbacks of Joel and Ellie's falling out. Or at least, that's how I first thought it would be. But the more I think about it, what if they do keep those sections of the game as flashbacks? Then we would keep the importance of the lingering question of what went wrong between Joel and Ellie, and also the impact of the moments when Ellie picks up the guitar to remember Joel again. In the interview from SXSW on YouTube titled The Last of Us Cast Talks About Season 2 with show creators, at minute 10, we hear Bella Ramsey talk about how music plays a role in the second game, by stating,
guitar and music definitely is like a bit of a thread through this season.
They wouldn't mention that just for the first scene when Joel gives Ellie a guitar. It would have to mean we get to see Ellie play the instrument more often throughout the season. For example, the scenes where Ellie is left alone in the theater and when Ellie plays a song for Dina. The more I looked back at the trailers, I realized certain scenes in the trailer taking place before the time jump, such as the scene of Joel talking to his therapist played by Catherine O'Hara. I also noticed in the scene where Joel gives Ellie his guitar that Ellie is covering her arm where her bite mark is. My guess is that we'll be introduced to Kat and her giving Ellie the tattoo that covers her bite. Those who don't know, Kat is the first person that we know of since Riley that Ellie liked. Within the game, we only hear of Kat through in-game dialogue in Ellie's journal, and she appears in the Lost Levels bonus content of the game. In the same interview mentioned before, Craig Mazin stated that if there is a character worth exploring in the show that we didn't get to see in the game, then they would do it. One confirmed character being Eugene, and my guess another will be Kat. If that's the case, it means we'll get to see Ellie get her tattoo. Evidence for this is seen in the trailer with the promisingly before time jump scene of Joel looking at Ellie's tattoo. Then, after Joel promises to give Ellie guitar lessons, we'll have the time jump of 5 years. Following the 5-year time jump, I believe one of the biggest changes would be here. Instead of Ellie waking up and having the introduction of Jesse, my prediction is that the Jackson dance will take its place. According to early development of The Last Last of Us Part 2, the Jackson dance being here was the original idea until it got pushed back to the end of the game as a flashback. For the show, they will likely have more events in order. The Jackson dance still allows us to get introduced to Jesse and Dina and lets us get a look at the Jackson community. But where the emotional conflict comes in is when Seth interrupts Ellie and Dina dancing and calls them a not so nice word, following Joel to step in to break them away from each other and Ellie getting mad at Joel for doing so. This is how the viewer will be told that there is tension between Ellie and Joel, which brings in intrigue and makes them curious of what happened between them. We know based on the trailer we're getting a scene from the very last moment of the game, maybe the most important one, the scene with Joel and Ellie wanting to heal their relationship. Because the scene was at the end of part 2 and the story will be played out across multiple seasons, it makes the placement of it tricky to decide. I don't think it'll take place in episode 1 because it kind of ruins the whole point of the flashbacks building up to that final flashback conclusion. We know that it takes place after the Jackson dance scene, but to show us again wouldn't work, unless they pull another amazing change that achieves the desired outcome, which I'm sure is possible. My best guess would be we only see a glimpse of the ending flashback, and in a future episode we'll see the full scene. Personally, I think having the scene in season 1 won't work because it's the most important scene in the entire story, and for that reason it should be the final flashback we see as it accomplishes being an impactful ending. For the time being, I think the scene of Ellie saying "you swore" to Joel, as seen from the trailer, will take place after the dance to reveal that Ellie found out what really happened at the hospital, but we just don't get to see how she found out in their conversation. In episode 1, we'll likely see the action sequence from the trailer of Jackson getting attacked by infected, with the drama being what Jackson as a community has to deal with to survive in the world they live in. Tommy is going to be more prevalent this time, as stated in interviews and seen in the trailer, with him using a flamethrower on a bloater. This is going to be peak. He is also a father now, and I believe I already know how that works towards the story of part 2, but we'll have to talk about that later. The difficult thing to figure out after showcasing the town of Jackson dealing with the infected is what scene would take place next, considering the introduction of Abby and how it will be portrayed in this show compared to the game. In the game, we cut to Abby waking up and talking to Owen, who tells her that he found Jackson. However, since Owen isn't willing to get their mission done if it involves risk, Abby, on the other hand, being filled with rage and doesn't care, makes her way over anyway, and we know how that ends. For the show, I can imagine more setup to happen before that point. My thoughts are that after the infected are taken care of back at Jackson and when the next day approaches, we get some scenes with Maria and Tommy, as well as learn that Joel is an uncle since Tommy now has a child. Now, how does that new addition of Tommy being a father come in play with the story? I believe that his kid is what gives Tommy a better reason to tell Ellie that he needs to stay at Jackson after the golfing tournament happens. Of course, we know that he ends up going anyway, but that only provides more to the story with Maria and Tommy's separation way later on. After we get all of these tidbits from the characters we already know of and some for the new characters such as Jesse and Dina, I believe that's when we cut to Abby. However, based on this one shot in the trailer, it's possible that we'll see that scene of Abby walking through the hallway of the hospital right before waking up to showcase that she is having a nightmare about the hospital. Then we'll see the scene with Abby and Owen play out. No, not that one. I mean them talking about Joel being in the town of Jackson. This moment will be different from the game, which brought in mystery. Now with the adaptation, its focus is on the fear because at this point we are aware of the fact that Joel took Abby's father. So instead, it makes people wonder, what does this mean for the next episode? The Last of Us Season 2 red carpet event basically backed up my prediction with an extra TV interviewer talking to Caitlin Dever about episode 1, in which
there's a lot of hate in that episode in your eyes.
There is.
This gives further evidence to my prediction of episode 1 ending with Abby filled with hate and a close-up shot of her eyes to show it. I think episode 2 will open with Dina grabbing Ellie to go out on patrol together, eventually reaching Eugene's hideout. Before they enjoy their time together, I think we'll learn about Eugene with him introduced on screen for the first time instead of only being discussed in game. In the trailer, we're made to think that Joel sends him back to the lobby, and I had a thought on why, but it was too far-fetched to keep in as a prediction. So I'll just put it on screen for you to read in case it somehow happens. I doubt it. What I will confidently predict is that Joel gets his weed from Eugene to pay for his therapy sessions. After we get those scenes with Eugene, we cut to Ellie and Dina discovering the hideout, and then the scene from the game plays out 1-to-1, including Ellie telling Dina that she's immune, which Dina doesn't believe. Cut to Joel and Tommy out on patrol after leaving Jackson, with some tension from the aftermath of what Joel did to Eugene. Tommy and Eugene were good friends, so maybe it'll test trust between Tommy holding the secret of what Joel did at the hospital, and if Joel will tell Tommy what happened to Eugene. Next scene, it transitions to Abby, who has decided to run off alone towards Jackson. At this point, you probably guessed test my prediction. I will make my judgment and say that the golf scene will take place in episode 2. The first 2 episodes of the season are all about the setup for the rest of the show. Considering that the game only took roughly 3 hours to reach the golf scene, which also includes gameplay, it makes perfect sense to formally set up the story more accordingly to the medium with the new addition of some scenes for episodes 1 and 2. This allows for the scene adaptation the Last of Us community has been dreading about to be placed in episode 2. I believe they'll make some changes to make the event more realistic, but despite that, there is sadly no avoiding golf practice. After we shed tears for a few solid minutes, we'll get the scene of Ellie and Tommy discussing seeking revenge for what Abby did to Joel. Episode 2 and 3 are likely going to be Ellie's first day in Seattle, considering every prediction for episode 2 so far will take the majority of the episode's length, meaning Ellie will either start bringing justice to Joel at the end of episode 2 or at the start of episode 3. Since in the game we play as Ellie and follow along Tommy's trail in Seattle with Dina, we didn't get to see Tommy until much later, so I think it will be nice to see Tommy's perspective in the show as he seeks revenge without Ellie and Dina. However, I think Tommy will appear in episode 4 instead of 3. I'll bring up why I think that later. In episode 3, as Ellie and Dina are on the search for Tommy walking through Seattle, they stop for a minute to play guitar and eventually come across the people Tommy tortured using the classic Miller move. I predict that episode 3's middle point will be Ellie taking down Jordan as her first victim, and later on will be her and Dina stumbling upon the TV station where the Seraphites fought with the WLF as they search the area and find photos of the people that trekked to Jackson to golf with Joel. Other WLF members show up to the TV station, forcing Ellie and Dina to run and escape the area. After they go underground to a subway where it's infested with spores and infected, as well as a meeting with a shambler, Ellie's mask breaks and Dina watches her breathe in spores. In a panic where they're rushed to escape, Dina becomes exhausted and needs Ellie to help her walk to the theater so she can rest. This is when it's revealed that Dina is pregnant after showing signs of sickness and tiredness throughout episode 3. Dina comes to terms with realizing that Ellie was telling the truth about her immunity. I believe the episode will end with Ellie turning the power on in the theater. For episode 4, I'm thinking it'll start with Ellie sitting down in the theater to play guitar, starting the flashback of Ellie and Joel exploring nature together, including Joel surprising Ellie with a dinosaur museum for her birthday. Afterwards, present day Ellie gets up in the morning to check on Dina, who fixed a radio connected to WLF comms, and finds out info that a lone male trespasser has been spotted. This fits as a perfect time to cut and focus on Tommy taking down members of the WLF. Transitioning back to the theater, Ellie leaves Dina there to find Tommy but stumbles upon someone else instead. I'm thinking episode 4 is when Jesse makes his way on screen again since the first episode and meets up with Ellie and Dina to assist them getting Tommy back to Jackson. I'm really hoping we get to see the awesome truck getaway set piece because I can't wait for that to be adapted to live action. Afterwards, similar to the first season with the Henry and Sam episodes based around Kathleen and her crew, I predict that episode 5 will center around the WLF takeover, which involves Isaac and their fight between the Seraphites. In the interview from SXSW at minute 30, we hear Craig Mazin state,
"This story is broader,"
referring to season 2, and gives us insight that
it has many more characters, many more lenses to look through.
This makes me think we'll definitely spend an episode or 2 following a story with the Seraphite faction and Isaac. This section I'd expect more scenes with just Abby and Isaac, maybe a little bit of Owen before he meets Ellie. Since we didn't learn much of Isaac in the game, he is most likely to get a new character treatment similar to Bill in season 1. Isaac's character needs to be explored more because in part 2 he was built up throughout the game but ended up lacking in character development even though he played an important role in the story. In episode 6, assuming that it will feature Ellie crossing paths with the Seraphites, I'm predicting that it will be the most intense episode. I think it'll involve the fight between the WLF and Seraphites, linking back to Ellie's day 2 in a way where she encounters the Seraphites and needs to fight them. Maybe Ellie gets captured by the Seraphites but manages to escape while taking a few of them down, or it'll be more like the game where Ellie stumbles across them and then just has to fight them. The only other theory I have for this episode is that I think it'll open with Tommy, Joel, and Ellie flashback of Ellie sniping with Tommy and then her bringing up the hospital to Joel again to provoke an answer to why he left so soon. If you have any other theories, then do let me know in the comments with a spoiler warning text beforehand. I'm just going to leave my episode 6 theory here because we need to discuss episode 7, the season 2 finale. Most people are predicting that it will end at the theater with Abby pointing the gun at Ellie. If that were the case, it will probably end up looking like,
"You killed my friends. We let you both live, and you wasted it."
If this happens, then it would probably piss a lot of people off just as the game did. In theory, it could work as a setting off point for the season. However, similar to how in the game it ruined the tension, it would absolutely do the same for the season finale. For the purpose of predicting season 2's finale, the third season will have to be discussed to decide what works for the show. I believe that season 2 will focus on Ellie's side of the story, and season 3 will focus on Abby's, and towards the later episodes, there will be changes to help bring a connection to Abby's side of events. So my prediction is that it does not end at the theater, but instead the scene that caused the initial fallout between Joel and Ellie. I'm talking about the flashback of Joel finding Ellie back at the hospital and admitting he lied to her. It works as a perfect parallel to season 1's ending when the lie was told, and it is a great place to end the season and hook the audience for the next. Before the flashback is shown, the event that takes place beforehand is when Ellie enacts violence upon Nora to seek Abby's whereabouts. The succeeding moment is Ellie back at the theater in an awful state, showing that her actions are taking a toll on her as she confronts the cost of revenge in a world that needs more empathy. Those are the themes that season 2 will explore, and that in the Joel and Ellie hospital flashback will be the season 2 finale. If you have any other ideas or think that it will end at the theater, then share your idea and let's discuss it in the comments. Here are the key takeaways of what's either confirmed or likely to be true in season 2. Opens with Abby's flashback. It takes place 5 years after the first season, just like the game. Tommy will be more prevalent in the story and he's a father now. The town of Jackson will have more screen time than the game did. Joel will pay for his therapy sessions with weed. We will learn about Eugene by actually seeing him on screen. The Seraphites will be introduced with new characters. Isaac will have more screen time and a better introduction than the game. Abby will appear in episode 1 with hate in her eyes. And what I can most confidently say is that it will be surprising if Joel makes it past episode 2. I can't believe it. It's already happened. Episode 2. Oh my god. The Last of Us Season 2, Episode 2 is the most stressful I have ever been watching a show. For a good reason. I had to pause so many times while watching it. I haven't finished the episode. Abby just glanced at the golf club. They've also drawn this out. In the game, it was not drawn out like this at all. It was so much quicker. It was filled with mystery. They're giving out every single point and reason. And for the show, that makes sense. I understand why they did the reveal early on, because they've changed this scene now. I'm gonna have to resume. I can't wait. I had a few predictions that I ended up scrapping while making this video, so just in case any of those ideas become true when season 2 comes out, I'm putting them here up on screen now. I need to have at least something correct. Regardless if I get any of these predictions right or not, I'm sure we're going to have our expectations exceeded yet again when season 2 of The Last of Us arrives. Also, here are my predictions for the episode names.
Seriously?
This video took 20 plus hours to create, so if you'd like to see more videos such as this one, then leave a like to let me know if I should make more, and also liking helps the channel out a ton. I have a wide range of content from awful trash to valuable content like the virtual reality gaming videos, but now I plan on making analysis videos about your favorite PlayStation games. So if you have any suggestions for any I should cover, then comment below and I might just make a video on it. The topic can be about its story or its gameplay, doesn't matter. I'll be excited to enhance my writing and video editing by doing both. I appreciate your time and thank you for watching.